Hi everybody, welcome to Indycar on Sunday. My name's Gordon Ross. Those of you who were awake yesterday might have noticed there was a royal wedding going on. I, for one, missed it completely because I was painting the back of the house. However, I did come in to watch some of the highlights because some of the female members of my family wanted to tune in to see what the dress looked like, because the dress allegedly cost us £300,000, and it was universally agreed in my family at least that although the dress was very elegant, it was very understated and certainly not worth £300,000. However, that aside, what I wanted to talk about today is not just about this royal wedding, because everybody's talked about it to death, but what I wanted to say was how this royal wedding fits into the larger picture of international politics at the moment. You might think there's no connection, but remember, nothing in politics and nothing in the royal family or in the British establishment ever happens by accident or coincidence. And believe me, despite the fact that Meghan Markle and Prince Harry are undoubtedly in love and have a great relationship, their marriage has been timed and is being used to cement the relationship between the United States of America and the UK. And it's being done on purpose at this moment in time because of Brexit. As we all know, we're going to exit the European Union next March. And if agreements aren't come to by then we'll be exiting without any trade deal with the European Union. And we know already from the overtures that have been made by the British government that the United States is standing by waiting for us to come cap in hand looking for a trade deal. Now, there is a lot of history between the United States and the UK, particularly during wartime when the Americans came to help during the Second World War. They were late arriving, admittedly, but they did come. But the point is that in British society, going back hundreds of years, whenever there was peace to be made or big arrangements to be made between countries, they were nearly always cemented by a wedding of a prince or princess or some junior member of the royal household or the head of state. And this to me seems a perfect example of that being brought right up into the 21st century. Miss Markle, for her part, brought a great deal of fresh and exuberant new things to the stuffy British establishment. And that was seen at the wedding when the priest or the pastor who was conducting the proceedings for her launched into a sermon, much to the amazement of the British aristocracy, who were standing by with their mouth gaping. That's a nice thing to have happen. But as I say, remember, this whole event was stage managed very carefully and stage crafted carefully to create a strong positive image in the public's mind between the United States of America and Britain, but also, interestingly, to get the American public on side as well. So it brings the American public into this British sphere of influence as well. As I say, this is not being done accidentally. It's all part of a wider plan for Britain and America to team up after Brexit. Now, if you add to this the fact that recently, those of you who keep an eye on the media and listen to radio as well will have heard a few interesting new documentaries on the history, particularly of Israel. Now, I'm not taking issue with Israel at all in this part of the show. That's maybe something for another day. But the history of Israel is obviously very short. It's only about 70 years since the country was actually formed. But the point is, the BBC has started with a charm offensive now about Israel. You'll remember there was a great deal of uproar about the anti-Semitism which was present in the UK that had sort of reared its ugly head since Brexit. And these new programmes about the documentaries about the creation of Israel are going in some measure towards being more positive about Israel. Now remember, Israel is largely financed by the United States of America. And the UK has a very strong tie to Israel because of the Balfour Treaty, which was signed, if I remember correctly, in 1913. Somebody can correct me. But this Balfour Agreement basically carved up the Middle East and its oil interests for the benefit of the UK. And in that agreement, created the space for Israel to exist in Palestine. That was part of the agreement. So Britain had a hand in helping to set up Israel, something which is often forgotten, and America has largely been financing it ever since. And now the British state is bringing Israel back into the news and giving us a lot more documentary space on Israel. Now, I think all of these things are being very carefully crafted by the British spin doctors in preparation for us doing a lot more business with America and Israel after Brexit. So this is not me bashing the Israeli state or anything like that, but just a fact of the matter is, I think after Brexit we will be doing a hell of a lot more business with the US and a hell of a lot more business with Israel as well. So you can count on Britain and America being in the Middle East in a big way militarily from here on in, which brings us also to Gibraltar and the importance strategically to the UK as a staging post for all of its forays into the Middle East, and also the airfield in Akrotiri, which is a British military airfield on the island of Cyprus. Now, all of these little players in the great global scheme of things, when you look at this in the round and all the things that are happening and all the things that you hear about in the media has a very simple method of manipulating public opinion, and that is to drip feed the information in a little bit at a time. So we see little parts of the picture independently, one after the other, with a distance between them. So in the public mind, we don't connect these instantly into a larger picture, but we start to feel a little bit less anti this and a little bit more pro that, and a little bit happier about America and a little bit more comfortable about the relationship between the USA and Britain. So I think that what's happening at the moment is very similar to what used to happen in the Middle Ages, which was, in order for two kingdoms to come to some new arrangement or to create a peace between them, they would marry some junior princeling or princesses or other daughters or sons of prominent individuals to each other to cement that relationship. And I believe that the royal wedding is being used in that way to some extent. I'm not saying it's the only thing that the royal wedding is about. Believe me, I'm sure that relationship is real, unlike Charles and Diana's wedding, which was much more pomp and ceremony but far less on the relationship. So what am I saying? Well, I think basically prepare yourselves for hard Brexit and a much closer relationship with the United States afterwards, because at the moment, as I've said on many other programmes before this, there's no sign of any agreement over Ireland and the future of the border between Northern Ireland and the Republic. Although there have been several articles published, one most recently on Channel 4, which showed that in one particular survey, those people asked in Northern Ireland whether they would prefer to Brexit with the UK or to remain in the European Union in a reunified Ireland, narrowly, and that was narrowly, only about 2% in it, narrowly voted for reunification. But there was a great deal of people in that survey who didn't know. So, who knows? But the point is that opinions in Northern Ireland are shifting, and it could well be that one of the prices or the costs of hard Brexit is that Britain cedes Northern Ireland. In other words, it gives it back to the Republic, and the Republic and Northern Ireland then need to come to some agreement. Remember that the health services of Northern Ireland and Southern Ireland are different. They have a different GDP, they have different standards of living in different places, so there would be quite a lot of work for both halves or both parts of Ireland to do before they could get back together. But interestingly, it could be that Britain will allow or give back Ireland as part of the price of its hard Brexit. It's not showing any signs of being able to square the circle of being able to trade or create a frictionless border, and this may be the only way that hard Brexit can be done. So we live in very interesting times, but I can see from the way the British media and the British state is manipulating the events that we've been seeing, including the royal wedding, that it looks like they are preparing us for a much closer relationship with the United States, which is worrying in a way, because it means that all of the protections that Scotland now has because of the European Union, as we know, will be swept away. But one piece of good news this week is that I've heard from a very reliable source that it is highly likely that the British state will lose its court action against Scotland's continuity bill. The continuity bill was to protect the powers of Holyrood from being taken back by the British state, and it looks like the British state might lose its appeal against that. It might not be able to challenge the competence of the Scottish Government to protect its own powers. And if that's the case, then that does lead to a gigantic crisis, and that's the point at which a referendum will probably have to be held. It's looking more likely, I understand, that a referendum is likely to happen slightly later in this year than I anticipated, for a number of practical reasons that I can't go into, but it looks likely that if there is a referendum this year, it will be later in the year and much closer to the actual date of Brexit. But interestingly, it looks likely that it will happen. So the big picture is that we're heading off a cliff and we're going to fall into the arms of America and Israel, or we vote for independence and we re-establish our own new arrangement with the European Union. And that, to me, is the better of the two deals. I'm not claiming that we should just stay in the EU, although that would probably be the easiest thing to do at the moment, the most expedient thing to do to keep Scotland stable. But if it's not possible, then the next best option, I think, would be the Free Trade Association and joining the group of countries, including Switzerland, which already trades with the European Union from outside. So, by and large, the picture is changing slightly, but the royal wedding put a different spin on it for me. And I think now that reading the entrails of the great political manipulation that's going on within the media, it looks very likely that they're preparing us for being a kind of sub-state of the United States of America, the 51st state, and being bound into a very close political union with the United States, much closer than we've seen before. Anyway, I have to go, but as I say, we live in interesting times. If anyone else has any interesting opinions about how all these pieces fit together, let me know. I may be completely wrong, but my interpretation is that they're preparing us for hard Brexit, and America is going to be the saviour, and Israel is also going to be involved in the trade deal, and I would expect probably Canada and some other places as well. Anyway, I'm off to have another couple of lessons before I go back home. But have a think about what I said about the royal wedding. Remember, it's traditional in British history to marry junior royals off to cement a new alliance with another country, and I think this occasion yesterday is going to be used in that way. There's a lot of propaganda capital to be had out of a great event like this, which makes everybody feel good and happy, and it makes America and Britain really come together the way that they're starting to do at the moment. So, as I say, the media exists to try and nudge people in the direction that the state wants us to go in, and I think keeps people happy if you're diverted into watching a grand spectacle like this. And I grant you, a lot of people in England, thousands, millions of people in England love the royal family, and it's one of their favourite things, and that's fine. That's absolutely fine for them. Up here, not so much. We don't get the benefit of it, and we pay for it, and we just don't really see any benefit from it, so we're a lot more lukewarm about the royal family. But, as I say, if it's cementing a deal with the US, I think we should be worried about it, and I think there's all the more reason now to redouble our efforts to get this independence referendum as early as possible before Brexit, whenever that is, but I think it's going to be the winter of this year that we're looking at rather than the autumn. I'm off. I'll see you later. Have a good Sunday. Bye for now.